Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another Monday this and that video where I talk about all kinds of different topics, usually leading you back to some videos I already have more specific on these things, but also answering a few questions or giving you some updates on the various topics, especially as the questions come in, which is mostly what I'm going to be dealing with today. So let's start off with the video that came out this last week where I was talking about no foil baking. And the point of the video was not just getting away from the aluminum itself and aluminum foil, but getting away from throwaway items, which would include parchment paper. Now, yes, sometimes there's those times you have a really big turkey that even the lid to your turkey roaster isn't going to cover. And so sometimes we still have to do something. And so some people talked about putting parchment paper and then foil over that. So the foil is not touching the turkey. But again, the point is to do the best you can to try to get away from having to use throwaway items, and especially foil when it comes to baking anything. And anyway, so I wanted to mention that, and that's why getting some good quality, be it cast iron, glass, or stainless steel pots that you can bake in that already have lids. Now, one thing I did not think to mention in there is that you can find all over eBay, Etsy, and any other place you can find secondhand items, lots of the old Corningware dishes. Sometimes they're square, sometimes they're round. The older ones were typically square, and they all came with lids, and you can find tons of them all day long with their lids still intact. And that might be the way to go, and you can save yourself a little bit of money than going out and buying something brand new. But the other thing I wanted to bring up is that I didn't talk about cast iron in that, because when it comes to making things like sauces, soups, gravies, those kind of things, I do not use cast iron. But when it comes to everything else, cast iron is something that gets used daily here. In fact, for those interested, I have a couple of videos out on cast iron that I will share down below. One is about cast iron and your health, and the other is about how to care for your cast iron. So I have lots of cast iron. So when it comes to baking breads, all those get done in cast iron of some kind. I have regular bread pans. A lot of times I'll make biscuits and stuff in cast iron skillets. Sometimes I'll do that directly on my wood stove with the skillet or in my toaster oven. Pancakes, all kinds of things get done in cast iron, but anything that's liquidy or has any kind of sauce in it, including casseroles, I'm going to prefer stainless steel or glass. And here's the reason why, is that I have made soup in cast iron before, and it was then that I realized just how much, when you're doing, especially anything that's going to have a tomato-based sauce, something that's acidic, it does pull a lot more iron into the mixture. Now, if you're very low on iron, that might be the way to go. But for someone like me who has to be careful about iron in her food or taking iron in any form because it can make me sick because I'm thalassemic, then I don't do soups and sauces in that way. Once I realized that, I stopped doing that. I do have a cast iron Dutch oven, but because of that, I'm like, nope, not doing soups in these anymore. And so yes, that applies to anything with a tomato base. So a lot of my lasagnas, enchiladas, and those kind of things are going to get done in glass or stainless steel. So we have to do what works best for us. But I think some people had the impression that I don't use cast iron, which is so not true, because it's one of the main things that I use. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk a bit about was extracts and tinctures. So even though I was trying to clarify some stuff all over again, there were a couple of people that still got confused. And I understand why some of what I was saying could be confusing, because even though I was reading off of that website, I didn't fully agree with everything they said. But I appreciated the fact that it did clarify something several people had told me, and I had read in other websites about the difference between extracts and tinctures, and the claim that extracts are stronger. But the main thing I wanted to understand is what really is the difference. I don't care which one's stronger, because personally, I don't really agree with the fact that an extract is necessarily stronger than a tincture, because it's all going to be how you make it. The main difference really though, it is what I'd always thought way back in the beginning, and is that a tincture is made from an alcohol, which is at least vodka and on up to Everclear, which I do not use Everclear. I have my own reasons, and I talk about that in that video I'll link to down below that just came out this last week. And then an extract is typically made out of any other thing. But here's the thing to also remember is all tinctures are extracts anyway. So whatever it is you're making is still an extract, and what really matters is don't be afraid of getting into it, because I am one that always experiments with extracts. I don't stick, in fact, I never follow anybody's recipe for an extract or a tincture, because I find the herbs that I know are going to be best for me, or experiment with them and do my own different blends. It's very rare that I make an extract from a single herb. It's usually going to be a combination of herbs. This one, for example, has several different herbs in it, as does my pain remedy extract. And I've been making various different forms of a pain remedy for years until I finally came down to the one that I like the best. So the ones I started making using a combination of my homemade wine, and yes, it can be store-bought wine if you don't make your own wine. If you're making it yourself, at least you know there's no additives like often put in store-bought wines, and you can make it from your own organic fruit if you want. So I make my own wine. There's no reason for me to go buy it. So homemade wine and raw honey I'm finding to be the best combination, and yes, they still work very, very well. And in fact, I did, since that video that you saw this last week was actually shot at least 3 weeks prior to that, I did go ahead and start, right after shooting that video, a batch of my pain extract using only maple syrup. It is definitely thicker and harder to keep blended, but I keep it out so I remember to shake it every so often. This is my experiment to see, because I want to find out if can a person use maple syrup, those people who cannot have honey, maybe because they're vegan or because they're a child under 1 year old. I wanted to see how well maple syrup would work as an extract. I think sometimes we feel like we have to use vodka because this person, or Everclear because this herbalist or that herbalist, that's all they use. No, experiment and find out what works best for you, and you'll know when you go to use it. And you know, some people will say, well, this isn't going to work as well as that. It's like, how do you know unless you've actually tried it? If you're only going by what somebody else says and what some book says, books are great. I have nothing against them. I have herbal books. I never follow the recipes since I create my own. And that is what it really boils down to. So I wanted to cover that. It's about you finding what works best for you and experimenting and just trying it, even if it's only making a tiny little batch like that, and then trying it. And then once you know it's going to work and you and your family can handle it, then you can make a bigger batch. Usually when I make my extracts, I make them in a quart jars at a time, depending on what they are. This one, obviously, because this is an experiment, I'm just using a 1/2 pint jar. And then another question I kept getting a lot on the video I did on toxic foods, quote unquote. Some people didn't even watch the whole video. Make sure you watch the whole video. It wasn't just about elderberries. That was just one of the pictures I put in there. So, and I mentioned in the video that I'm only going to be covering a few things. And if there's anything you have a question of, you're wondering about, how to research it for yourself. So I even included a link to the video on how to research such things for yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link you back to that video on are these foods really toxic? And then watch the whole video. And then if you have a question about something that grows around you, like poke or poke berries in particular, unless I take the time to research it myself for you, I don't know that one, because there's been no need for me to research that, because that's not something that grows wild around here. So I do recommend that you look into it yourself. But what I will say is there were several people in the comments section that did come in and say that they had heard that pokeberries were toxic, and then they heard in other places they weren't, so they started experimenting, started eating one berry a day, then 2 berries a day, and then upping it. And what they noticed, at least a couple of different people share this particular testimony, is that the more of the berries they ate, their arthritis kept getting better and better and better. So Those are their testimonies, but I still, read these testimonies, learn what people have to say, and also couple that with your own research. And it doesn't matter if it's pokeberries or any other plant. And another question that was a result of something I said in one of the videos that came out this last week about cooking using solar power to cook with, or the solar oven, or some various things. I had people asking me about that. So I did a video, I think a new one last year it was, about being partially off-grid, where we're not fully off-grid. We still have public power, but we also have solar power. And I talk about how I use these in conjunction with each other. So in the summertime, we're getting plenty of solar power. It's a lot of sun coming in. I talk about how I utilize that for cooking and baking and running some different electrical things off of that. And then in the wintertime, I do most of my cooking and baking happens on the wood stove. So I'll link to that video down below for those who have more questions about that. We do have an older video that we really need to update that Patrick did some years back about our whole solar setup, but we've added to it since. Not so much the solar panels, but with our battery bank, and upgraded a few things in there. So some things are different, but I will go ahead and link you to that older video on our solar power tour as well. And then as far as the solar oven, well, the one that I have and use, I bought years ago, and it's no longer even made anymore. But I did do a video last year or the year before about solar ovens in general, where I did a little research comparing different solar ovens and their popularity, and then going by price and size, and laying some different ideas out so people can decide which option is going to be best for them. And I did include the All-American, but that's not necessarily going to be the best choice for everyone. A lot of people love it, but some people may prefer a different model. So I tried to cover all that, and I'll link to that video down below. And another question I got is about, is there a way, because I kind of talk fast or I'm throwing out a lot of information, is there a way to slow down the videos? Yes, there is actually. You have a choice of playback speed. Some people, when they watch my videos, they speed it up so they can get through it faster but still hear everything I have to say. And some people prefer to slow it down for if I'm talking too fast for them. And it's a little settings thing over here that you just click on, a little cog wheel, and you can go in there and adjust the video speed. And if you want some more detailed information on how to do that, I do have a video out where I show you how to do it that I'll also put in the description box down below, so you can know how to adjust the speed to suit your needs when it comes to, and that doesn't just apply to my videos, but anyone's videos. And then one more thing I wanted to bring up is I get a lot of people, sometimes people just really complaining about why I don't have written recipes out there. And let me tell you, I do. In the last 2 years, I've been trying to work as time allows. I'm an incredibly busy person, especially with the 2 grandbabies. One of them I watch pretty much 5 days a week. The other one I watch 2 days a week. And plus YouTube is a full-time job. So I try to do this stuff as time allows. And when I first started my channel, what you have to understand, the whole reason I started my channel was so I could show people how to do things, since a lot of the recipes and things I do are not based off of recipes that are written down. They're just things I do. I just put things together. And that's why I wanted to start showing people, because on Facebook, when I would share a picture of some creation I'd made, people would start demanding a written recipe, which I didn't have. But what I have been trying to do over the past couple of years, a little at a time, is write out recipes for people. That does take me extra time to do, especially since I have to think about it and have to kind of throw in all the different options. And when I do that, I put those over on Patreon. Now, before any of you balk and freak out that, oh, but I can't afford Patreon. Well, you can afford this, trust me, because every single one of my posts is open to the public, which means you don't have to pay a dime to go in there and see that. I like Patreon because it gives me a place where I can put the written recipe, plus give you the link back to the video, plus put in photos if you need it. I like the way it's set up. And for those who want to donate, they can, but you don't have to. I don't leave anyone out. all my posts there are public. And I appreciate all our patrons that do donate. Some people will donate for a month. Some people will donate, have been donating every month for years. And it's all going to be dependent on you. I understand there's a lot of channels and people you follow and you can't afford to give that little extra to everyone. And I don't like anything that makes people feel left out because they can't afford it. So that's why I keep my Patreon totally open. Every single post is public. I'll put my Patreon link down below and you go in there, and if you see anything about donating and you can't, just scroll past that and go down to the little search bar and just put in recipe. You should be able to pull up every written recipe I've put in there so far. I have quite a few now, and I'm still going to be working on putting more. A couple of different ones that I've done in the past year have been the one on making different sweetbreads, where I not only gave a basic recipe but gave you a whole bunch of different options you can use, be it apple bread, zucchini bread, pumpkin bread, banana bread, and so on. Different ways that you can make some icings if you want to put that on top, and whatever you can think of, and then help give you ideas that you can take it and run with. And that's the whole point of any recipe I give, is so that you can take it and tailor it to suit you. And then I did the same thing with my chocolate recipe. So I have a whole bunch of different chocolate recipes. Last year I did the coconut cream chocolate, and that was when I decided to sit down and type up all the recipes into one place. And by the way, if you do that, please send me some photos so I can get this recipe collaboration put together. So I'm putting it off towards the end of January, but I would really like to see more pictures coming in. I've had a couple more submissions for that. Thank you so much. I still need more before I can get this video put together. So anything that you've made, whether it be a main dish, a side dish, a bread, a chocolate, any kind of dessert, off of any of my recipes, even if you've changed quite a bit of it to suit you, as long as it was at least inspired by one of my recipes, then please make sure you take some pictures of that and then send those to me at raincountryhomestead@gmail.com so I can start putting this Rain Country subscriber recipe collaboration slideshow together. That's kind of long, but anyway, and if you're interested in seeing the ones we have out already, I'll put that playlist link down below. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed my this and that for the week, and thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.